The silence of the funeral was a heavy blanket, smothering any sound save for the occasional stifled sob. Then, Rex, Daniel Granger's German shepherd, shattered it. His barking was relentless, a guttural cry that clawed at the solemnity of the moment. Initially, attendees dismissed it as the raw expression of canine grief. But the escalating frenzy in Rex's voice hinted at something more, a desperate urgency that prickled the skin. They were there to honor Officer Daniel Granger, war hero, devoted husband, and, most importantly, Rex's steadfast partner. Rex, adorned in his police vest, the word police emblazoned across his flank, sat at the foot of the polished mahogany casket. But his composure was fleeting. A low whine escaped him, followed by tentative barks. The mourners, steeped in their sorrow, initially paid little mind, attributing it to the dog's confusion amidst the sea of unfamiliar faces, the absence of Daniel's comforting presence. But Rex's behavior underwent a dramatic transformation. He rose to all fours, his ears perked forward, his gaze laser-focused on the gleaming coffin. His tail, usually a barometer of his emotions, stiffened like a rod as a deep growl resonated from deep within his chest. Abruptly, his barks became sharp, piercing, desperate pleas that echoed through the chapel like a dire warning. Heads swiveled, confusion rippling through the pews. The officer assigned to Rex's care attempted to gently restrain him, but the dog remained unyielding. He lunged forward, his paws scraping against the smooth surface of the coffin. Murmurs, hushed and questioning, spread like wildfire. Something was undeniably amiss. Daniel's widow, Sarah, looked up, her face etched with surprise. Rex had never exhibited such behavior. This was more than mere grief. It was a clear, unmistakable signal. The incessant barking grated on the nerves of the assembled mourners. Some attributed it to the overwhelming stress of the occasion. Others speculated that Rex was merely processing his grief in the only way he knew how. However, veteran officers present, those who had worked alongside K-9 units for years, recognized a disturbing familiarity in Rex's reaction. It wasn't panic, nor was it fear. It was alertness, unwavering focus, the intense concentration displayed by a working dog when hot on a trail. Officer Bryant, a close colleague of Daniel's, rose from his seat and approached the agitated animal. "Easy, boy," he said softly, crouching down and placing a calming hand on Rex's neck. But Rex didn't flinch, nor did he cease his vocalizations. Instead, he emitted another bark, even sharper this time, directing it squarely at the base of the coffin. Then, as suddenly as it began, the barking ceased. Rex began to pace in tight circles around the casket, emitting plaintive whines, his nose diligently sniffing along the edges. He returned to the same spot repeatedly, pausing each time to tap at the polished wood with his paw. It was then that Officer Bryant noticed it. A faint, almost imperceptible sound emanating from within the sealed container. A muffled cry, weak and fragile. The color drained from Bryant's face. He turned to the funeral director, his voice urgent and commanding. "Open it." A collective gasp swept through the room. The director hesitated, stammering something about protocol and procedure, but Bryant's voice brooked no argument. "Open the casket, now." Rex growled again, pressing his nose against the lid, reinforcing the urgency of the command. The room fell into stunned silence as the lid creaked open, revealing the interior. Nestled beneath Daniel's folded hands, concealed within the folds of his uniform, lay a tiny, squirming newborn puppy, miraculously alive. Time seemed to freeze. A wave of disbelief washed over the mourners as all eyes focused on the tiny creature wriggling on Daniel's chest. The puppy, no more than a few days old, trembled, its fur still damp from birth, its tiny nose blindly searching for warmth. Rex let out a soft, low whimper, his tail wagging tentatively as he peered into the coffin. His entire demeanor had shifted from frantic agitation to protective, almost paternal concern. How did it even get there? Someone whispered, the question hanging in the heavy air. The priest, his face pale, made the sign of the cross. Is this a sign? Officer Bryant, his hands trembling, gently scooped the fragile pup from the casket. As he did so, a folded piece of paper slipped from beneath the edge of Daniel's jacket. Curious and shaken, he picked it up, recognizing Daniel's familiar handwriting on the outside. It read simply, "If anything happens to me, please take care of them." Them? Bryant echoed aloud, his voice thick with emotion. Another collective gasp filled the room. Rex, still standing guard, gently nudged the infant puppy with his nose and emitted a soft bark. Not a bark of alarm, but of confirmation. He hadn't simply been reacting to grief. He had been trying to protect the vulnerable creature all along. Daniel hadn't just trained Rex to obey commands. He had entrusted him with something far more profound. Loyalty that transcended even death. And Rex had fulfilled his promise, guiding them to a miracle that defied all comprehension. Tears began to flow, not just tears of mourning, but tears of awe and wonder. As the mourners slowly gathered around, Officer Bryant unfolded the note with trembling fingers. The room was utterly silent, the only sound the rustle of the paper. All eyes were fixed on the worn piece of paper, as if it held the key to unlocking the mystery that had unfolded before them. The letter began simply, "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it home." A collective sob echoed through the room. Even the priest recoiled, stunned by Daniel's prescience. "But if Rex is still with you," Bryant continued, his voice cracking with emotion, "and if, by some miracle, she made it too, then please know this wasn't an accident. I knew she was coming. I kept it a secret because I didn't want anyone to panic or try to stop me. Rex and I, well, we've seen things most can't understand, but we always understood each other." Officer Bryant paused, struggling to regain his composure. "She was born the night I went missing in the cold. Alone. Rex didn't leave my side, not even when he had the chance to run. He stayed. He guarded. And when I closed my eyes for the last time, I only hoped someone would hear him bark." The crowd erupted in tears. The puzzle had finally been solved. The barking wasn't grief. It was a final message, a desperate cry for help, a guardian's alarm. Daniel's final mission hadn't been about himself. It had been about protecting a life he'd barely met. And Rex had ensured that life wouldn't be forgotten. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the hills, the puppy lay nestled in a soft blanket inside the precinct's K-9 office. A nurse who had attended the funeral confirmed it. Despite the cold, dehydration, and hours spent in the coffin, the puppy would survive. "It's a miracle," she whispered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Rex sat quietly beside the makeshift crib, his eyes locked on the tiny bundle of life. His usual stoicism had melted away, replaced by a calm protectiveness that no one had ever witnessed before. Officers passed by, shaking their heads in disbelief, some stopping simply to sit beside him, sharing in the quiet reverence of the moment. This wasn't just a rescue. It felt sacred. Amanda, Daniel's widow, arrived, clutching the letter tightly in her hand. She knelt beside Rex, tears streaming down her face. "He knew," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "He knew she'd need you." She reached out and gently stroked Rex's head. He leaned into her touch, his eyes soft, his body still. Amanda looked down at the pup, her voice trembling. "She'll grow up knowing who her father was and the dog who saved her life." Bryant stood nearby, watching the poignant scene unfold. "He never stopped protecting," he murmured. The department unanimously agreed that the puppy would stay with Amanda and Rex. She would grow up surrounded by love, with a living piece of her father watching over her. And Rex, he hadn't just lost his partner. He had found his new purpose. He hadn't barked out of fear. He had barked because life, against all odds, had persisted. If you enjoyed this heartwarming K-9 story, be sure to like and subscribe for more incredible tales.